Hello, English teachers. Here we are in another video that I think might be useful for your teaching. So let me share my screen and okay, today I'm going to talk about how to manage time in the English classroom. Before that, I want to remind you that my name is Jimena Barrenti. I'm from Luján, but I have been living in Zárate for 3.5 years. I have been teaching English for 18 years, almost 19 now in November. I have worked in bilingual schools, private schools, language schools, and public schools. I am currently working in two public technical schools, only secondary school, but I prepare plans for teachers who work in primary school or language schools or secondary school or projects. So do not hesitate in contacting me if you need anything. The other day I was talking on my Instagram about this thing of time and my teenage students. I think it can also work for primary school students. When I used to work in the bilingual school and I had to prepare students for the international exams, I am talking about also primary school students because I prepare them for flyers. Um, I talked about time a lot because each part of the international exam has a certain amount of time and you have to respect that time, and because then you have to leave the pages on the desk or hand them in to to the person who to the invigilator. So my students had to practice also how much time they would be doing the exam. So when I started working again in public schools 3 years ago, I realized that my students thought that they had like all the period to solve activity number one. And that wasn't the case in my classroom, at least. So I had to set times for each activity. I'm going to show you an example of something we are doing right now and that happened in this week during my lesson. So, for example, in year 5, we are working with this unit, which I invented and then that you can also buy. The unit is called Look After Yourself, and in this unit, the idea is to work with healthy habits and modal verbs. So, for example, I told my students that they had to read this text, underline the words which were similar to Spanish, and then they had to solve activity 8, which was circle the correct summary for the text. So, in my opinion, reading this and underlying the words which are similar to Spanish. So I like to encourage these type of activities of underlying because in that way they can realize how much they understand of the text without needing to understand the whole of it, you know? So, in my opinion, this would take them 15 minutes. So, for example, it was 10 o'clock. I told them that at 10:15 we were going to correct the activity. I like also chunking activities and like assigning one activity, checking it, assigning another activity, checking it. So it is more dynamic and the students don't get lost in the middle of all the activities, right? And then I told students that they had to do activity 9, in which they had to choose the meaning of the words which appear next to the numbers. And I told my students they had 5 minutes to do so. So, for example, it was 10:25, and I told them that at 10:30 we were going to check. When it was the time to check, one of my students said, "Extra time, please," because we are now living the World Cup and they see this phrase during the matches. So I said, I mean, I saw that they were working and doing the activity. So I said, okay, 3 minutes of extra time to finish the activity. So at 10:33, we are going to check. And I have different ways of checking the activities. For example, it can be whole class, as it was number 8. This was a whole class. Number 9, I use another resource, which I'm going to show you right now. I really like this page, Wheel of Names. You can log in and save all your wheels of names. Um, so you type the names of your students here and then you spin the wheel, and my students know that if their name appears on the wheel of names, they will have to shout out the answer. This works really well. My students are between 12 and 18 years old and they love the wheel of names. So I really recommend you this web page or this resource. Another thing that I can do is if I see that some students have or need better positive points, I tell them before checking the activity, I tell them, okay, Juan, Pedro, Lucas, Matias are going to give the answers for activity 9, suppose. So they compromise and they take responsibility of their activity because everyone wants to get positive points. So, and they do the activity and they try to do it as best as they can. So when they give the answer is correct because, well, making mistakes is a topic for another video. And by doing this, by chunking the activities and setting a specific amount of time, I can really, like, for example, maybe in one period, my students solve 4 activities at least. I mean, of course, it depends on the length or on the things that they have to do, but more or less, my students solve 4 activities. And which I would like to buy in the near future. Let me show you. Okay, is this kitchen timer, because, well, at school we don't have clocks. My students use their cell phones, but during tests, my students can't use their cell phones. So I am thinking in buying one kitchen timer so at least they have an idea of how much time they have left in order to solve the written exam. So I think my next uh, purchase will be one of these kitchen timers. Tell me if you work as I work, if you have a clock in the classroom and if you can, or if your students pay attention to it, leave me a comment. I would be really interested in reading your comments. And well, remember to check my webpage because I have a lot of free resources for busy English teachers, and I also have a lot of units of work for busy English teachers that you can buy. And well, if you like this video, leave a heart and a comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.